by that time, I reached down and felt my leg, and I'd seen so many people shot over the years. I knew this wasn't just a through and through because my hand was just saturated with blood.
Howard Doss.
Hey, Sean.
Man, we are back from CrimeCon, back in the dungeon, the studio.
We are, man. CrimeCon was a lot of fun. It was really hot out there, and then we came back here, and now it's really hot
It's
here.
really hot in Tulsa, definitely. Brought the heat back. And speaking of hot, man, we have got a guest here today on Coptales and Cocktails that, man,
Yeah,
I don't even know how to even word it. I mean, the heat came, we'll just put it that way, when, he was out there doing his job. And the heat came his way. But before we jump into talking with our guest or even introducing him, I will say this. Our guest is from the beautiful Kentucky.
Louisville.
He is from Louisville. And you and I took a little trip to Louisville, Kentucky a few years ago. And we'll even be able to tie all that into talking with our guest today. And so the bottle we're going to sip on today is Blade and Bow that we picked up actually at the Stitzelweller experience, I think was the term of the thing we went to.
It was an experience.
It was an experience.
Jason didn't make it.
Jason had an experience the night before and was hungover and
so
didn't
we
make
had
it.
a wonderful time there. We walked around. Our guide at Stitzelweller, he was a good 3 or 4 inches taller than you.
Yes.
And he wore overalls, and he had more hair than I have on my back.
He looked like that Jason Momoa dude.
He did in overalls.
Yeah.
It was
a Kentucky Jason Momoa.
We're going to talk about our guest?
We are. So, man, we have got now retired, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Sergeant John Mattingly from the Louisville Police Department.
Welcome,
Correct.
John.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
John, thank you, buddy. So, we were obviously working through some technical stuff before we got on. As we mentioned, we are drinking a little bit of bourbon here today, and you yourself, though, are drinking something very, very tough that only guys with a stellar career like yourself, 2,000 search warrants and so forth would drink. What are you having?
I've got my wonderful iced coffee.
Iced coffee, all right.
When you're a 49-year-old and you've got a 7-year-old boy that is 100% active all day, all night, dude, I've got to keep caffeine just flowing. If I start on the alcohol this early, I'd be crashed.
You have a 7-year-old?
Yeah, I got a 25, 23, 22, and then 7. Yeah, I did the old cop
all
thing.
The same,
divorced,
same mother?
No.
Okay, I was just going to say, that's the question. Yep.
Well, I will tell you that I had a wonderful thing called a vasectomy.
I did too. And I had it for 10 years, then got it reversed.
Reversed? Oh, yeah.
I came to Oklahoma and did it.
No kidding. Was it, there's a guy out here in the, it's
David
not
Wilson?
even like one of the major, and it's not in one of the major cities either in Oklahoma, right? It's kind of like a smaller place.
Right.
Did you say Owen Wilson?
No. David Wilson was the doctor. And he's not even a urologist. He's a vasosurgeon. And the dude's success rate is like through the roof.
Yeah. No, and I'm not going to name a senior police officer on my department. I know he went to him as well. And that's what, and same thing. He was married since he was like 22 years old, ends up divorced, married a younger woman. They are still together. She had never had kids, wanted kids, and he went and got it done. And I'm almost positive that is the same guy.
I guarantee it is, man. He's an odd bird. You go there and he has no bedside manners, but he does his job and it's all you.
Well, he's working on balls all day. That'd be weird, man.
It is weird. And you stay awake the whole time. And it was like a 2.5-hour surgery. It's not like the original vasectomy where they give you a couple shots, snip, snip, burn, sew you up, send you on your way. They're having to go in there and reach
those things out.
Oh, you get a ball lift. I mean, it's amazing.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I will say this, being the three of us have all had it, we're not going to turn this podcast into it, but for any guy out there listening, man, it is having a vasectomy is such an easy process. Yes. I mean, it's crazy how many guys are scared to death of it. I mean, Howard, you're a nurse, you're in the nursing field. What, you know what I mean? I mean, I popped some, they gave you some Valiums.
And I had a couple beers to go with that.
Well, I had it done on a Friday. I laid around and watched college football all day Saturday, NFL all day Sunday. And at the time I was working in a street crimes unit on the police department, a plain clothes deal. And so I went back to work, and just that whole week I worked in the office. And then like a week after that, I was kind of back out on the street. It was no biggie.
Yeah.
Well, no, we're not here to talk. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I mean, we kind of get off on a tangent. We just kind of go the way it was.
No, because
Mine
I
was
got a
super
great
easy.
story with mine. So go ahead with yours. I'm
Oh,
sorry, I keep interrupting. We got this little delay
well,
going on, but
since I'm in the medical field, I knew this urologist well. He was a buddy of mine. I rode bikes with him and stuff. So I go in there, and of course, I go into his office and I start calling him Dr. Soft Hands, and his staff loves that, So he comes in and he's like, "Hey, you're going to have this vasectomy. This is the chances of this, chances of that." Goes through the whole consent with me, and I'm like, "All right, great. All right, man, when you want to ride again?" He was like, "No, stand up, pull your pants down." I was like, "What? What are we doing? A dress rehearsal here?" He goes, "I need to get a look at it." And he rolls up on this stool that's, I don't know, 3 inches off the floor, comes up and grabs me. And I'm just like, "Man, dude, I know you do this every day, but this is the weirdest thing ever." So thank goodness he has moved and I don't have to know that he's fondled me.
well,
All right,
I
your
know you
story.
all
Go
got
ahead.
Valium. I know y'all got Valium. David Wilson does not believe in narcotics, evidently, because I got none, just local. And when I left, I thought, well, at least he'll give me some hydrocodone or something, because I got to fly back to Louisville the next day. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, this is horrible. He gives me a prescription for ibuprofen. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Of all times, legally on the police department, you can actually take something, and I get ibuprofen. Not only that, and it was a discounted rate, and this is why. He left the drain tubes in, and gave me some butterfly stitches.
Oh,
And these drain tubes are held in by a safety clip that are stuck through your balls and clipped together. And so the next day, I'm in there looking down, shaking, sweat running down my arms. I've got to undo these safety pins and pull them out and put the butterfly tape on. And so it was a weird experience.
But
it worked.
You're a new dad again.
You
So
that's it.
Worked every bit.
All right. So nobody knows. I mean, maybe some people do, but John Mattingly would be somebody. If that name came across, I would think, hey, man, this guy coaches NFL. Right. That's what I would think. I would be confused and think that. But he's not. I mean, you had one of the most high profile cases ever.
Yeah, I mean, definitely in modern law enforcement. So, John, I know you just retired from the police department last year. What year did you come on there in Louisville?
2000. Came on June 5th of 2000.
All right. Were you in law enforcement prior to that somewhere else?
No, I didn't get on until I was 27, because I'd gotten married when I was 19, kind of like your boss you're talking about. Got married when I was 19, and my wife at the time was real hesitant about it, for the safety issues and all that. So I didn't do it. And then finally, by the time I was 27, I was like, man, this is what I've always wanted to do it. So I'm just going to do it. And maybe it was the beginning of the end of my marriage. I don't know, because 3 years in, I was divorced and found me a younger wife too, I guess.
Man, when you got on, were you one of those cops, even though I assume Louisville's like most larger departments, you get on, you got to spend your time out on, as a basic street cop. And then eventually you can work yourself into specialty units. Were you one of those guys that, especially being a few years older, obviously life experiences, but you were just like, you hit the streets and you were just like, bam, 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 let's go. You wanted to chase bad guys.
Oh yeah, man. I would have paid to go to work when we first started. I mean, you just didn't want to go home. It was car chases, foot chases, fights all the time. And it was like living a Cops or Live PD episode every day. And so I was on late watch for the first 5 years, and probably the first 3, we had a pretty tight core, and then guys started, going to different units and stuff, and it just wasn't the same. So I started looking for other units to go to. And in 2005, I went to what's called a flex unit. And it's basically a division level narcotics type unit that was also available for, prostitution details or carjacking details, stuff like that. I did that until 2009 when I got promoted to sergeant. And I went back to late watch for a year, and that about killed me, man. I was older by this time. I've been off of it for a while. So I only did that for a year. And then I went to our division detective's office for about a year and a half and couldn't stand it. I mean, I like the guys, but the suit and tie thing wasn't me. And so I we were starting up a brand new unit in the department because our crime rate had just gone through the roof in Louisville. And it was called Viper. It was a violent crime unit. And it went after murder suspects, shooting suspects, robbers, carjackers, all the hardcore guys, kind of like your gang unit. And
right.
I did that for about 3.5 years. And then I went to our major narcotics division, which is where I was up until the time that the Breonna Taylor case.
And I apologize, we'll probably say Louisville, but it's Louisville for Louisville's, right?
That's
Louisville.
Right.
We love Louisville.
Good
time.
Just talking about you, when you refer to I think the late shift, is that your graveyard shift? That's the overnight.
Yeah, we were midnight to 8. We were still on 8-hour shifts back then. They've since shifted to 12-hour shifts, but yeah, we were the midnight to 8, and then you'd have court the next day at 9, and then those defense attorneys would drag you out till 11 and try to get you to leave, and it was miserable. Good time, but
no,
miserable.
I had it the first year. So at 23 years old, I worked our third shift is what we call it, which was 3:30 in the afternoon till 11:30 at night. Second year, I didn't have any seniority on the department. We have what's called a bid board every year. Didn't make the third shift, ended up on graveyards. And just how you were saying, going back to it later in your career, you hated it. I didn't like it at 24. I think I was on there maybe 3 or 4 months, and then they end up having a retirement from somebody on the third shift, or we had some rookies cut loose or something like that, and they opened up a spot, and I got to move to third shift. And when I got promoted to sergeant, I got put on graveyards as well again for a year. And about 5 months in, then I broke my hand in a fight at work, and luckily never had to go back to that shift. End up getting out of it, but there's guys that love it, and it's great for their families, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah, that's the only reason I did it my first 5 years. Go ahead.
How was the transition going from 8s to 12s? And I know in nursing we work 12s, and man, some of those days get long.
Well, I never did it as a protocol shift. Now, when you're in narcotics, every day is a 12-hour day. So it was different. But you're not tied to the radio, so it makes life a lot easier. If you want to go eat, you go eat. If you move around, move around. But those poor guys that are tied to that radio, they love the off days. They hate the shifts. By the time their off days come in, they're wiped out. And it's probably not very safe either.
No, and that's what I was going to say. That's the other part. What are they working, like 3 12s, then 1 week, 4 12s the next, something like that?
It's a really weird split. It's like 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, 3 off, 2 on. It's really bizarre. I never worked it, so I only heard it peripherally what they were saying. But yeah, it's from the outside. If you don't work the shift, you'll never get it down. You're like, when's that guy working again? I can't remember. One of those deals.
Well, Oklahoma City PD, and I don't know if they're still doing it. Recently they work like 8 days on, 6 days off. So I mean, you think about it, you're getting like almost like a vacation every other week, but dude, you got to grind out 8 days straight. So yeah, 8 on, 6 off. And then just as you were talking about court, I mean, think about it. You're thinking you've got a whole week off. You're going to get out of town. You're going to run to Louisville and see
pick
some
up some
friends.
bourbon.
Yeah, pick up some bourbon, visit John Mattingly, and next thing you know, you got court. So all right. Yep. So you're working narcotics, man. And obviously we're going to get up here to the search warrant with they're at Breonna Taylor's residence. How long were you in narcotics at the time that this warrant was served?
Went up there in 2016. So it had been about 3.5 years.
All right. Your time in there, I'm assuming, I don't want to say basic. It's by not any means a basic job, but I mean, you guys are focused running informants, search warrants, buy busts, all the typical type of stuff narcotics units do. Is that correct?
Right. And for about 1.5 years, when I was in the major case unit, I had the TFOs for the FBI and the DEA that reported to me. So we did a lot of stuff with them, did wiretaps, all that type thing. Then at the end, I had just switched in September of that year because I knew I had about 5 years left in me on the police department that I wanted to work before you start losing money to come to work. And so I said, I've seen so many guys, and I've been going hard my entire career. I wasn't one of those guys that just sat back. And I said, I want to start slowing down a little bit. I still want to be involved. That's the reason I never took the promotional test to lieutenant, because I saw those guys, they get promoted, they're pencil pushers, they're stabbing each other in the back, trying to climb rank. Had no desire for any of that. So when we were there, I said, I'm going to switch over to our interdiction unit, which was parcel and street interdiction, the highway. So I went there because I thought, boxes aren't going to shoot back. You might get a paper cut and that'd be about it. And little did I know it would lead me right down this path.
So if you're over there, so at the time that this happened, the warrant, you were actually working in the interdiction unit?
Yeah. So the unit inside our criminal investigation division, that's what it's called, that housed narcotics interdiction, and this unit called place-based investigation. They got that from Cincinnati, where they pinpoint focus on subjects that are nuisances to the community. And they sent out an email about 2 weeks prior to the event and said, hey, we've got 5 simultaneous warrants we're doing, super manpower intensive. Is there any volunteers for overtime? And I was already working that night up until 10 o'clock anyway. And that's when the brief started. So I said, hey, I'm already going to be here. I'll just jump right in and keep working.
All right. What's interdiction mean?
You're just intercepting. Like the main thing we did, we intercepted packages at UPS and FedEx. Now we used to work with the postal also, but before I got there was a little pissing contest between postal and our department, and like children, they took their ball and went home. So another department worked with them with that. But I mean, I'll give you an example. We go out to UPS, and UPS hates anybody telling this story, but I don't work for them anymore. So we would go out there one night a week, and UPS, we are the main hub for the United States through Louisville. There would be 3 million packages come through there a day. We would go out there and pull 20 packages. That's all we'd pull at night. So we had a 2-hour window where we could identify packages, pull them, have a dog sniff them. If they met the criteria, write a warrant on them, open them up. Either they were good or bad, and you'd have to tape them up, put them back before the plane went out, or you seized it. And so we would intercept 20 boxes a week. Out of those boxes, you could take a 6-foot table and stack it 4 foot high with drugs, because the postal service, the parcel services are the biggest movers of dope in America.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Had no idea.
Yeah. Even out of our division, we had ours was called SID, Special Investigation Division, and we had dope dogs that worked out there. And there was a couple of guys. That's what they did. They went out there to UPS or wherever it was going, and they just ran their dog out there. It's just part of it. And just to follow up on what he was saying, you do make an interdiction. You come across a package, and then we're not a hub like you guys are there. So the interdiction they're running here, it's going to be delivered in Tulsa. And so it would basically get repackaged. And I mean, this is not a secret, but we have narcotics officers that obviously wear plain clothes. We have fake uniforms for the various postal carriers.
We did
too. Have some Browns.
We got some Browns. What's Brown done for you or whatever? And then they go make a delivery. They show up at the house, make a delivery. People take it. We've got a search warrant prepared already for the residents. As soon as they take it in, you run a search warrant and obviously catch them for the dope.
So how do you pick 20 packages out of 3 million?
Well, what you do is you start with source cities. You look out west, Texas, California, Nevada, different places like that are typical for where your narcotics come up from the south and they get distributed. And then you look at the cities that it's going to. You got Raleigh, Atlanta, Louisville, different places that after time you just kind of pick a pattern up like everything else. And then you look at what we would do is we take the names on the packages and we run them through one of our programs that tells you whether, people's phone numbers and stuff. And if that information didn't match up, because generally they're sending it to an address that doesn't belong to them and in a fake name. And that's kind of the case on Breonna Taylor. This guy was using her to send stuff to his house. Well, obviously they said, well, there's no packages going there in his name. Well, no kidding. Nobody that's doing the dirt's going to put their name on it. That would just be, suicide. So we would just look at those things. Then once you pull it off, you get it, you look at it, certain way they're taped. If it's got dope in it, usually every single seam is taped up on it, and you take it and you put it down with 5 good boxes that are legit, that don't have any dope in it. And you got the one mixed in there. The dog runs a line. If he alerts on it, then you pull it and you write the warrant on it.
So out of 20, what's your best haul in a week?
Oh man, I could send you pics. Probably, a couple kilos of fentanyl and cocaine, always weed, ton of weed. And we got near the end, we got to the point where we weren't even looking for weed packages, because those are shooting fish in a barrel. You could get those all day long. But the fentanyl and the way they hide them. Man. Yeah. The way they hide it, they finally got us some true narcs where we could, laser it to see what we're dealing with. So we're not having to physically open every package. Cause heroin has a specific smell. Cocaine has a specific smell, but you ain't going to sniff fentanyl unless you want to die. So we got to the point where we laser them all and see what was in it.
Yeah, fentanyl's been part of the opium epidemic. I mean, it's just killed tons and tons and tons of people, man.
Yeah,
that shit needs to get off the streets. I give it all the time in the hospital, but I'm watching people like a hawk when I do it. I mean, I think that's the number one reason we have to give Narcan to everybody now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, especially out on the streets. I mean, from the EMS and firemen and even cops, obviously, that are carrying them. And hell, there's federal grants out there now that departments are getting so that officers can carry Narcan.
Hey, have you heard of that shit, carfentanil? Carfentanil.
Elephant? Yeah, the elephant tranquilizer. Yeah,
man, I heard that a couple of.
We only saw it twice. I've only seen it twice on all those interdictions, because generally it's
that
just
shit's like hazmat too.
Oh yeah, it's no joke.
All right, John. So you guys, roughly how many warrants have you been involved with during your career, you think?
Yeah, it's well over 2,000 that we've been through the door on, because you're looking at, out of my 21 years, 14 of them were spent on nothing but these type specialty units. And there were some days, many days during the week, we would do 2 or 3 a day because we'd work with other units that are like ours, and we're constantly pulling bodies. Hey, we need help just for 2 hours. Come over here, hit a door, then go back to your thing. Or your guys would have a warrant. And I've always been with guys because, as a boss, Sean, that we're not the guys. We're just sitting there.
Yep.
We're holding the reins, kind of navigating things. So I would always make sure I had good guys under me that were trustworthy, that were able to do the job, and they'd make us just look like rock stars. Everybody would praise me, and I'm like, oh, I don't write these warrants. I don't have these informants. These are these guys. I was just
spot on.
lucky enough to find the right guys to put under me.
No, and I appreciate you saying that, because that is so true. I was very, very fortunate, and all the time, my years in the gang unit and what we called our crime gun unit. And obviously I did the media interviews, the live PD thing that came along with it. And that was the first thing I always said was, like, listen, man, these are the guys right here that are ones busting their ass. I might be the face that gets to talk to the media, and talk about the shooting or this arrest we helped out on this homicide or whatever it is. But the guys that were in that squad, man, are the ones that busted their ass. And I've got 2 guys actually just getting ready to get awards here next month for Gang Investigator of the Year for a big long-term T3 case they did on one of our gangs. And it's the same thing. We had all the media interviews, and the politics of policing just like I do. You've got prosecutors and other people that are up there on the stage talking about how they stamped out this group or this violent crime, and they didn't do a fucking thing. They're not the guys doing the foot chases or kicking a door down or, talking to the informant, blah, blah, blah. So, and that means a lot, you saying that to the guys that worked with you, to other cops, because there is nothing worse than a supervisor that takes all the credit for the work his guys do.
Yeah. And half these supervisors, you can't even find half the time on duty. They're off doing their own thing. But yeah, you talk about the bosses, man. I hate it when, the white shirts would all get on stage and there'd be 10 or 12 of them. They wouldn't even talk to you. And all of a sudden they're up there reading some script that you gave and talking about the great job they did and breaking their arms, patting themselves on the back. And you're back there just throwing up going, it's ridiculous.
It's the same in every
makes you not like those people. Yeah.
Same in every department. Well, another thing you said, and we'll get into obviously the incident, but another one you said spot on. I never wanted to promote either. I never want beyond the rank of sergeant, never wanted to go higher, had no desire to be a part of administration. Didn't want to be at the mercy of the chief, on where he wanted me to work. And like you said, all the backstabbing that goes on for people trying to work up the division commander and stuff. All right. Anyway, so you guys are helping out, multiple search warrants going on. You guys have the residence of Breonna Taylor.
Right.
And how did you get this residence? You found a package?
No.
What the fuck?
We did.
Are you not familiar with this case at all?
No. I kind of know it, but I mean,
So I'll take you back just a little bit. This was like a 3 month investigation that'd been going on, and they had poll cams up, trackers, pings on phones. They were doing it right. And what happened is Jamarcus Glover, who was the main ex-boyfriend, but the main guy in this ring, he had his vehicle registered to Breonna's house. He had his cell phone registered there. He had been bailed out of jail a couple of times over the past couple of years. The most recent, in January of 2020, Breonna bailed him out. They used her address as his address. His bank account was at her address. So everything pointed to her address, which in these scenarios raises the red flags. Okay, she's probably holding the money, or maybe some dope, or at least some intel that's going to tie in information on this ring where they can have a better conviction in court. So that's how her apartment got tied into it. And you ask how,
right. So
go ahead.
So back to my question is you had been kind of stinging this through what you've been finding at UPS and packages being delivered. Is that how this originally started?
No, they started with, because the mayor, it's really hairy. The mayor wanted to redevelop this area on Elliott Avenue. They had the plans drawn up for a couple of years. It was gentrification is what it was. And they wanted to bring in this big project. They had the plans drawn up. They kept sending emails going, we got to get these people out of these houses. They even sent a map out that showed the houses the city had already taken over, and the ones they needed. And 2 of them were the ones they were hitting that night. So that was the real story behind it. It wasn't that this guy was such a nuisance to the community that everybody was complaining. He was a bad dude, a bunch of drug and gun charges, but he was not the worst of the worst in our city, far from it. But the mayor was really pushing this thing. And we, as the police department, you have no idea why. You just follow commands. It goes to your major, down to your lieutenant, to your sergeant, to you, and they're going, okay, we'll hit this area. Okay, here's the complaint I have in hand. This is where I'm going. And that's what they were doing. Now, they did have packages of him going to Breonna's house. They've got pictures of him going in with nothing, coming out with packages. But again, when they ran that through postal, nothing came back in his name.
Okay, gotcha.
Right.
That's where I was getting confused, the UPS thing, man. All right, thanks for clarifying that.
So there's 5 search warrants that are being run. Your team's running one at the apartment of Breonna.
Mm-hmm.
And what time of night is this?
12:40 when we hit the door.
12:40 a.m.?
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys had a
early
night
morning
service?
Early morning of Friday the 13th, full moon out. It was great.
Wow. And ironically, I know this is, we're not supposed to date the date we're doing this podcast, but we are actually doing this thing here on Saturday the 14th. So it's 2 years ago, right?
Yep.
No,
2
3
years
years
and
ago.
2 months. 2 years and 2 months.
It is 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah. So it's another Friday the 13th.
Or 3 months.
No. Okay. So your team at 12:40 a.m. Obviously, a lot of talk, still a continuing talk about no knocks and all this type of stuff. and I know that you guys, despite having a no knock warrant, did knock and announce your presence.
Correct.
But you obviously listen to get a no knock warrant. There are certain things that have to go in the affidavit that a judge has to sign off on. To get a night service warrant, which you guys obviously were doing, there are certain things that have to go in the warrant that a judge themselves has to sign on. An officer just doesn't get to fill out an affidavit and go, hey, we want to go hit Howard Doss's house at 2 a.m. without knocking on the door, and the judge assigns it. There's a lot of other things that have to go in there. So if you guys are running 5 warrants this time of night, obviously every affidavit for every residence had all of these specific things in them, correct?
Correct. And the reason the no knock was signed for all of them is because they didn't know exactly where Jamarcus Glover would be. And he was the reason for the no knock as far as his violent past, the guns, the evading police, all that stuff. All those factors came into play. And when we got to the brief that night, they changed it from a no knock to that one only as a knock and announce, because it no longer fit the parameters of the no knock. Now, we could have kept it. We could have done something that was kind of, a little iffy, grayish area, but they did the right thing. And they said, it doesn't fit the parameters. Let's change it to a knock and announce. They even said, she's a heavyset Black female. She's there at home alone. So they said, give her extra time to come to the door, which every time in my career, it seems like, Sean or Howard, that I've gone against what I've always done or something that wasn't my decision, that you go, I don't really like that, but if you ask me to do it, I'll do it. It seems like something bad happens. And that's what we did that night, because the typical knock and announce is 5 to 10 seconds. You're knocking, you're announcing, you're knocking, announcing, giving them time. If you don't hear anything, you pause, you hit the door. Well, this was almost a minute knocking and banging on this door. And that seems like an eternity when you're on the other side of something, of the unknown on the other side.
Now, for your department, did you guys, I know you're now retired, but prior to, I think there was I don't remember if it was a policy change within the agency or something, even at the state level. I think they've taken away no knock warrants there for you guys. Prior to that, though, were no knock warrants something that was you guys regularly did there in Louisville?
No, I think there was 5 total the previous year, 5 or 6. So they were a rare thing, and they act like, and the thing that ticks me off the most, because like I'm a Rand Paul guy, and what he just did the other day was great, I thought, blocking that $40 billion stimulus package going to Ukraine. But one of the things he did, because, he's a libertarian, that he wants less police in your lives, or less government. We all do. Nobody wants a government in your life. But when you got bad guys that are problematic to the community, somebody's got to step in. And, when he got his jaw broke or whatever he got by that guy that hit him, his neighbor, he wanted the police to step in. Right. But he used this as a platform, and he actually called it the Justice for Breonna Taylor Act. And I'm sitting at home going, you've got to be kidding me. This is a guy I supported and voted for, and he's totally twisting the narrative of this, because it wasn't a no-knock, and it had already been told at this time that it wasn't a no-knock. Yet, he still capitalized that on to pass a bill and to push it through. And in the state, they can't. I think there's still some exigent circumstances, maybe like homicide suspect or kidnapping that they can do it. But yeah, it's very narrow now, and nobody will even apply for it.
Well, and you know, I was on our SWAT team for 7 years, started serving search warrants back in our street crimes unit, which would have been in 2002, I think, 2000. You know, in 2 years, we ran a shitload of them. I was in narcotics for a year. I was in gangs for, I don't know, 12 years, whatever it was. Same type of deal. We ran a ton of search warrants. And despite all of that, I think on SOT, when I was on SWAT, we might have ran one no-knock warrant. And the way that it's been portrayed by media and, you know, anti-police people, politicians, it is such a rare occurrence, at least for most of the agencies that I know of. It's just not something that is done all that often. And, but, you know, yeah, obviously the anti-police sentiment that was already going on, and things were turned slanted. I mean, everything from this was a no-knock warrant to she was sleeping in her bed, et cetera, et cetera. But so you guys get up there, you knock on the door, a minute goes by, and then at some point you guys breach the door. And are you guys doing the standard, you know, you've got a ram type of deal to breach the door?
Yeah. So I'm on the left side of the door. The door swings from right to left. My part, or the breacher's on the right. So he can hit the door, and as it comes open, I can see through, you know, to the part that gets exposed. It was a breezeway. So it's kind of a small area. It was an 8-plex. You had 4 up, 4 down, a metal staircase that went up by her door. So the breacher was right there at the staircase underneath it. And when he hit it on the third hit, it came open, and I cleared what I could of the right. And once I ran out of real estate with my visual, you know, you've got to, at some point, you got to go in. And the thing that people leave out on no knocks, everybody assumes if it's a no knock warrant, you're not announcing yourself. There's never been one time on a search warrant that even on no knocks in the past that we've done, where you're still not announcing yourself once that door's hit, because you want them to know you're the police. You know, at this point, the gig's up, the door's being hit, the noise is being made. So now I'm letting you know I'm the police, so you don't shoot me. That's the whole point of it. And so the fact that people say, okay, well, they did knock, because Kenneth Walker, the guy that shot me, did say they knocked, but now they didn't announce. You know, first is they didn't knock or announce. Then it was, well, they knocked for a minute, but they didn't announce, so he didn't know who we were. And all that's just asinine. And I'll tell you some more stuff about him in a minute. It goes to his character about how much he lies. But, you know, it's people got to understand that just because you, quote, eliminate no knocks doesn't mean you're going to change the effect of what a criminal's going to do in their mindset.
Right. So you clear to the right, you turn to the left, and then what happens next?
As soon as I step in the doorway, so I step in the door frame and come around from my right to left and down this narrow hallway, probably 25, 30 feet, very dark. There's some ambient light coming out from the TV in the bedroom. I got a rail mounted light on my pistol, because, again, our department is so great. They had changed the rules about 5 years ago where we couldn't use long rifles on search warrants or shotguns. Everything's pistol, and there's no optics, just hard sights. So come around the corner and down the hall, I see something totally different than I'd seen in all of these warrants. And, you know, when something happens different, your mind's just going, oh, this is bad. So I look down the hall, and there's 2 subjects overlapping one another, one taller, one smaller. And this is what it looks like. And one tall head, one short head. But then I just see the barrel of a gun. As I'm coming from right to left, I stop at him. I never even got over to Breonna Taylor, because everything's happening in milliseconds. I mean, this is going down quick. I go right to left, and I see the pistol, and boom, it's over. He shoots. And so I get off 4 rounds as quick as I can. I go behind the door frame to my left, come back around and put 2 more in where he had jumped into a bedroom. They hit the door frame there. And by that time, I reached down and felt my leg. And I'd seen so many people shot over the years. I knew this wasn't just a through and through, because my hand was just saturated with blood. And so I knew it was some artery that had been hit. So I even announced it to the guys right there at the door. I said, man, I've been hit. It hit my femoral. And I went down on my butt, because I'm thinking, in my mind, you know, you think some weird stuff when this is happening. I'm thinking, if I stand up and keep moving, I'm pumping my blood harder, and it's going to pump out. So I go down on my rear end. As I do that, Miles steps up over me, and he's putting rounds down range so I can get out of there. And so I jump up and I hobble off. And as I go to the curb, I stumble over it, because my left leg didn't really work, and the muscles totally shut down at this point. And I step off the curb and go to the ground. As I'm going down, I look over, and my buddy Mike is laying down between the cars. He was the last one in the stack. And when the shot rang out, he stepped back and tripped over the curb. And so I go down, I'm looking at him thinking, oh crap, Mike's been shot. So when I hit the ground, I holster my weapon. I said, man, are you all right? He said, I'm good. So I'm like, I need a tourniquet. I just started saying, I need a tourniquet. So I'm trying to put pressure on it. I'm telling him I need a tourniquet. About that time, my lieutenant comes up, grabs my vest from behind, slides me out from between the two cars into the parking lot, and they get working on my leg.
So somebody there, one of the guys, they end up having a tourniquet and slapping it on you?
Yeah, originally my lieutenant didn't have one because I love the guy, but you know how lieutenants are. You're lucky to find their guns. So he pulls his belt off.
Aren't you a lieutenant?
Well, our departments changed the rank of sergeant to lieutenant. There wasn't a promotion. They just got rid of the title. All sergeants became lieutenants. All corporals became sergeants. I was
Well,
still.
that would be nice if the pay bump came with it.
Nope. Nothing.
Oh,
here's what it was,
cares?
and not to break. Literally, you know what? Listen, I hate to stop this story, but our department, all the supervisors at those ranks got to vote, and what they were saying was our lodge was saying it's how we can compare ourselves to other agencies that are roughly our same size for pay, and because these agencies refer to their sergeants as lieutenants, and so of course all the corporals on the department, they were like, hell yeah, I want to be called a sergeant. And a lot of the sergeants were like, hell yeah, I want to be called a lieutenant. And I was one of, and I'm not joking, a handful out of hundreds and hundreds of supervisors that voted for it. I said, hell no, I didn't want it. I wanted to stay sergeant. So that's why I'm always still Sergeant Sean Sticks Larkin.
Hey, Sean, you know what fathers love doing?
I got a whole list of things I like doing as a father.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what a lot of fathers like. They like peace and quiet. And one of the places they could get some peace, and it's not so quiet, is mowing the lawn.
Yes, mowing the lawn, whether it be the yard out in front or behind the house or the one below on the body.
Right.
Or on the backside of the body.
Right, or any of those places. But if you're going to mow the lawn, what do you need?
You need a lawnmower, new lawnmower 4.0.
4.0, it's a big one. They sent us some of these. We tried it out.
Not on each other. We've done it on the own privacy of our home.
We did try it out on each other, but we're not going to tell everybody that. And man, these are awesome.
No, they are fantastic. Listen, I have my entire adult life, I have been a fan of body maintenance, I guess would be the term to use.
Hygiene.
Body hair maintenance. Hygiene. Exactly. It's for a hygiene thing. And I've gone through different things through the years. And this Manscaped 4.0, the lawnmower 4.0, I'm sorry, that was sent out to us. It's a great little box. Came with all kinds of stuff, man. You got the 4.0 in there. You got a little nose trimmer. You got a pair of underwear.
Yeah, and you've got that ball deodorant. Excuse me. You have that no square deodorant.
Yes, the no. Yeah. So it's a hell of a kit that they send out. And listen, for all our listeners out there, whether you are a man yourself and you're looking for something to keep the body looking trimmed up, you yourself have a father, the young, the wives that are out there and so forth, get on manscaped.com, get yourself the kit, get it sent out to the house.
And keep your man and your daddy.
Wow. Anyways, whether you're using your dad or your daddy,
keep them trimmed.
Keep them trimmed. And you can use code STICKS on there as well. STICKS, manscaped.com.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, go back.
So he puts this leather belt. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, what was going through your mind after you'd been shot and it was femoral and you had dropped to? I mean, you did the right thing. You shouldn't be running around on that leg. That does cause a little bit more blood to flow through there. So what's going on in your mind where you're being dragged backwards?
Well, the whole thing, I just kept saying, dude, I need a tourniquet. I need a tourniquet because I knew I had a time frame, right? What is it, 5 to 8 minutes, something like that?
Right.
That you got to get this thing on. And so I knew time was of the essence, and I wanted to make sure we could find, because I didn't know if there was 1 or 2 holes. I had no idea because everything happened so quick, and it was so loud in that little breezeway because the metal and all the stuff that I wasn't sure who shot what, at this point. And so I'm thinking, for some reason, God kept my mind calm, and I remember everything that happened. And I was telling people what to do. Go there, do this, stop that. And I remember hearing Brett going, they've got a rifle. They shot with a rifle. And I'm laying on my back as they're trying to get this tourniquet on. And I said, I remember leaning up and going, no, it was a pistol. Because I remember seeing it. And so just some of those things are just, instinctive. When you've been a boss for so long, you just can't help yourself. And so they tried this leather belt. And my buddy Mike, who had stepped on my leg to try to pull it up because they couldn't get it tight. And there was so much blood, it just kept slipping. So finally the guy with the tourniquet came up, They got it on me. And I remember I felt more pain in my groin and my lower back than I did where the bullet actually went in. And so as they put the tourniquet on, I'm like, wait a minute, get a knife, cut it up. I want to make sure you're high enough, because it felt like it was higher than where they were putting it. And I knew that was shot there because that's where the blood was coming out. But I didn't know if the bullet had gotten lodged up deeper in me or what had happened. And I was wearing a wallet in my front pocket that had a little metal clip in it. And that bullet came through my leg, and that diverted it from hitting my femur, but it went over and ripped through the femoral artery. And so they ended up taking, I think, 8 inches of that out and replacing it with a vein. But while I'm laying there, I'm thinking, man, I really just got shot. So I remember pulling out my phone and calling my wife, because I thought, I don't want her to get that knock at the door and be freaked out. And so I called her. It rang, went to voicemail. She had taken an Ambien that night and was out. And so I started to leave a voice message for my family just in case I died, because you don't know. And I was doing that, and Mike looked at me and went, "What are you doing?" And you can hear this on video, because by that time the body cam guy had gotten there with the beat guy, and he yanks out of my hand. He said, "I'll take care of that." Well, then he forgets and leaves the phone on the ground the whole time, because I sit there and gave him my password, told him where my wife was staying, because we had just sold our house and we're staying with a friend. We were in transition to buying this new house. And so they didn't know where she was. So fortunately, one of the other guys I used to work with knew some of our mutual friends, got on Facebook, found out where they lived through Accurate, ran to their house, grabbed them up, took them where she was staying, woke her up, scared her to death, all the typical stuff. But yeah, it was an experience.
Man, John, so when you're shot and the guys are working on you and eventually get the tourniquet on you, did you guys have, EMS on stage close by? Did you get load and go up in another vehicle? How'd you end up at the hospital?
So EMS was like less than a half mile away. They're always on standby on our warrants.
Right.
What I didn't know, and what I've petitioned them to change, but they've changed nothing after this. Not any way they serve warrants, EMS protocol, any of this. They had 2, I think they're called Class A, which are just simple life-saving EMTs, no paramedic, no stage 2, whatever that's called. I can't remember. So can't administer certain medicines. They know basically CPR and how to put a bandage on you and get you to the hospital.
They didn't have Howard with them.
They're truck drivers.
Exactly.
Just truck drivers.
Bad truck drivers, let me tell you that. So I pulled up, when we were doing the brief, the secondary brief on location, I pull up and they're sitting there stationed, and I go up and I'm trying to get their attention. This one guy, the driver's sitting there with his headphones on. He's got braids. The other young guy, they're both probably 21, 22. I mean, they look younger than my kids. I had one black guy, one white guy. Black guy's sitting there with headphones on. The white guy's over there so entrenched in his phone, they didn't hear me honk. I finally get my flashlight out, get in their eyes. They look over. He can't get the headphones unlatched out of his hair. They're stuck. And I remember telling the guy with me, I went, God, I hope these aren't the guys that have to save my life. Because I'm thinking.
And they were.
Yeah. And nothing against them. You could just tell, zero experience. And the funny thing is, when they finally get me to the wagon, which took them about 12 minutes to get there, because they didn't hear the radio call. I don't know if they were still on the phone, headphones in, totally missed it. And I'm thinking, because they went, do you want us to load you up and go? And normally I would say yes. And I've always said my entire career, if I get shot, load me up, let's go. But we're about 25 minutes from the hospital that I needed to go to, the one with the trauma unit. And it's raining out.
The good one.
The good. Hey, listen, I know the same ones in Tulsa. If you're shot, there's certain hospitals you want to go to and others you don't. That's it.
And so, and it's raining out, and I know how cops drive, and I knew everybody was, adrenaline was through the roof. And I'm thinking, if they throw me in the back of this car, I know this dude's going to drive like an idiot and kill us all. I said, no, EMS is close. Just wait. Just give them a minute. Because I knew how close they were. And I thought I'd rather be in the back of that getting something done to me than in the back of a car and having a wreck. So they finally get there, and they carry me. They get me to the ambulance. They put me on the back of a car in the trunk because they couldn't get through because of the gate. They bring me down because they came in the wrong entrance. So they drive me down there. They get me to the back of this wagon. They open the door. My lieutenant's carrying me at this point. And I'm 200 pounds, with all the gear, it's about 240. And I can hear him just, he's breathing. Thank God he was a college athlete and played baseball. And so he at least had some skills. And he's 6'6", so he was able to step over this gate and all these things. So he gets me there, and they start to pull the gurney out. And I remember thinking, you're idiots. So I grabbed the gurney while he's holding me, and I push it back in and say, I'm here now. Let's go.
Yeah.
And they put me in. One of the other guys jumps in with me. I think my lieutenant's throwing up and needing oxygen. And he's standing there one guy standing to my left, one guy standing to my right, my buddy's standing right there, and it's just silence. We're sitting there, and I'm looking at him. I go, "What are we doing?" And my buddy goes, "Do you need me to drive?" And the little white kid went, "No, I got it." And he disappeared. He was like, "Man, I don't want nothing to do with this. I'm done." So he jumps up front. Yeah. The black guy steps up. He's just looking around. And I look at him. I go, "Dude, am I your first gunshot victim?" He kneels down close to me and he goes, "Hey, to be honest, you are." And I said, "This is the first time I've been shot. This is the first time I've been shot. So let's not screw this up." Well, he was like a deer in headlights, man. He never put a finger on me, never touched me, never did anything. About that time,
well, that's probably
God,
good.
Man, oh yeah, the back doors came open, and there was 2 paramedics from the fire department standing there, and I happen to know one of them. And he looks at me and he goes, "I didn't expect it to be you." I said, "Thank God it's you. Let's go." They jump in, and man, they get working. I mean, they were perfect, and they just kicked this guy all the way and said, "Keep our times." That's all he did, keep our times. And the funny thing is, about 4 months later, this guy gets on social media and says, "Had I known this guy was a monster that had murdered a black woman while she was sleeping and all this stuff, I would have never saved his life." And I'm thinking, oh, man.
You didn't do shit, man.
You didn't do nothing. You got in the way is all you did. So that's just the kind of crap we're dealing with.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So the perception is you shot somebody when they were sleeping. It sounds like you shot down a hallway where 2 people were. One was being used as a shield, it sounds like, right?
Yeah. So what happened was there was an inset on the wall next to Kenneth Walker. So a 3 foot hallway. She's a big girl. He's not a small guy. He's about 6'2", wide, not fat, but he's wide. She's big. They're crammed in this hallway, but there's an inset that goes into a bedroom door here, and then to the very left of them, their bedroom. And as soon as he shot, he dove out of the way. I mean, boom, he jumped, left her hanging there. She tried to follow him in, and due to the forensics, you can see the blood trail where she was almost in that room when she got struck. And then the blood circles back around and she falls back the opposite way. Her feet are where he went into, and her head's back up against the wall on the other side. So he was just a coward because his big thing was, "Oh man, we were getting home invaded. I thought we were getting home invaded." Well, if you do that, why would you bring your girlfriend out in the hallway with you? Why wouldn't you go, "Hey, get in the closet and call 911. I'll take care of this," until you get the police on the way. But they didn't do that. And then when it was over, who did he call? He called his mom. He stayed in this apartment for 16 minutes before he came out and they could get help to her, which she had already passed by this time. But he stayed in there. He had hidden his gun. And then he said, "Well, I dropped my gun under a bed when you first shot." I'm thinking, if you thought you were getting home invaded, you would have retrieved that gun and been and waiting for them to come back in. But it's all lies because he called his mom, and his mom told an officer on scene who went to school with Kenneth Walker and knows them. She said, "Kenny called me and said, 'Mom, they're at the door.'" She said, "Who's at the door, baby?" He said, "It's the police. I got to go." Well, that was never brought up in the media. That was never told about. And so then when he comes out, when he gets arrested, listen to this. When he gets arrested, he comes out, and this is all on body cam. They're going, "Who else is in the house? Who else is in the house?" He said, "My girlfriend, she's dead." And they're like, "Where is she?" "She's down the hallway." "All right, where's the gun?" "It's her gun. It's inside." "Well, who shot the police?" "She shot. She was scared." So then he blamed her for shooting us. So This dude's character is just, no credibility whatsoever. But the press believed him over 7 cops that had over 140 years experience in this game. And it's just unbelievable, the roadblocks that we faced over and over. And 26 months later, 26 months in, guys, our city and our department has not debunked one of the rumors. They've never come out and said, "No, they were at the right place. No, she wasn't in bed. No, the other guy wasn't in prison already or in jail like y'all said. No, they weren't there to rob people." No, all these things that were lied about, they've never come out and spoken up for us, not one time.
So even after the fact, obviously charges were not brought against you and one of the other officers, and I apologize. What was the other officer that fired? I know there were 3 of you total, if I remember.
Miles Cosgrove was the one that stepped over me. Brett's the one that circled around and shot through the windows.
Right. And so Brett ended up having the wanton endangerment or whatever it is. Yeah, wanton endangerment, three counts of wanton endangerment. And then and he went to trial, and it took a jury less than 3 hours or roughly 3 hours to find him not guilty. So despite you guys were justified in what you did, one of the officers that is charged is found not guilty. Still nobody from your own agency at any level has stood up and spoke to the media about it.
Not one. None of the politicians in town. and this just gives you kind of a feeling of what it was like. So our city council president, his name's David James. He was a retired cop. He did 20 years on our department, retired, went to another department for about 5 years, got elected to city council, became president over a couple of years. He trained me in the academy. He's the one that taught us about search warrants when I did search warrant classes. He taught us all these things that we did. And now he's a city council president. So I thought, well, maybe I've got an out here. Maybe I've got somebody who can kind of come to our defense. Black guy, he's got some respect in the community, former cop. This could be good. So when things started picking up, because originally with COVID, this thing kind of got pushed to the side because on March 13th when the nation shut down. So there's press conferences every day for that. And I thought, and it shouldn't be this way but it's ever since Ferguson, what's the first question you ask, Sean, when there's shooting? Were they black or white? Shouldn't be that way.
Yeah,
it just should be. Was it a good shoot or bad shoot? Period.
Well, listen,
it's all that should matter.
It's not. I say it's not the officers that are asking it. It is. I mean, literally, command staff people ask it. I have been on shootings where officer-involved shootings that people who are very anti-police, or that, they are very fortunate. They get the microphone in front of them every time they are upset about something. The police. I know a specific shooting. One of the guys in my squad was in and shot and killed, a dude shot at him and he shot him and killed the suspect. And this guy within our community who is very anti-police, he showed up and that was the first thing he asked. And when he found out it was a white dude, he left. Wanted nothing. It didn't matter then. And that's the whole point.
Yeah.
And sorry to take over that, but that's the thing.
No.
Any shooting, a good shooting, what we call good and bad. And when we say good or bad, we mean legally justified is what we mean.
Exactly.
And
right.
It none of that matters. And listen, any cop in America, any person that poses a threat to them and is shooting at them or whatever, we don't give a shit. We don't. It's like it is what it is.
His gun didn't care that I was white or that he was black. He just pulled the trigger and shot. And we had a colonel when I was on scene of a shooting, officer involved shooting. She called and this guy shot at our guys. They shot back. She called and I'm standing next to the person she's talking to, my boss. And she didn't say, are the officers okay? She said, was the suspect black or white? That's all they cared about. And I'm going, man, this is ridiculous, man. The path we've gone on. And again, it started back in 2014, 15 especially once that took place with Ferguson. Things just kind of went downhill. We kind of rebounded some, never got back to where we were. But now, those poor guys are down in the gutter again, dealing with all this crap.
Man, and we've only got a minute or two left, and I apologize because I feel like we could talk to you for 2 more hours. But
we can cut all that vasectomy stuff out. See that's a pun.
Cut it out. Yeah, but Howard and I, we ended up in Louisville that summer, and we were there as two things. COVID was happening and protests from the Breonna Taylor deal. So we were there. We stayed, 3 or 4 nights?
We did, man. We went around to drink corn liquor. We had a good time.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything was shut down. We were, we're nice guys. We were able to work our way into establishments that were shut down and for quote unquote private parties and have a good time. But we were there and watching the protests and got an opportunity to speak to a lot of the police officers that were there and just how they were getting their ass kicked, man. The hours, the fact that they weren't really allowed to do anything while the damage that was happening in the city and everything was boarded up. And when I describe it to people, I say, man, it looks like what Florida or something looks like when a hurricane is getting ready to come through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Everything in downtown Louisville was boarded up on the lower level and everything had graffiti on it and damaged and stuff like that. And we were at a great Cuban restaurant
in Nulu.
Those guys are awesome, man.
Those guys are awesome.
And that's so they were open during this. And we went in there and there was a couple of Louisville police officers that were working it. And, recognized me from the show. And we came through, I started talking with them for a while. And that's what they were saying, just how crazy, it was going on here and how the owners of that restaurant refused to, and listen, I'm just going off of what they had told me. These officers told me that basically some BLM groups there or people affiliated with BLM were basically demanding all the businesses down in that area be anti-police, essentially putting stuff up in their windows about what was going on. And that owner refused to do it and how he had received threats about his place getting burned down. And so that's why the officers were there working it. And that's just the stuff that you guys had to deal with down there.
Well, let's roll this back again. What's the name of this mayor?
Greg Fisher.
All right, so this
Piece of
son of a
crap.
bitch wants to get he wants to do some community development. He wants to gentrify an area, and so he sends the cops in to do his work. Nobody's talked about that son of a bitch. I mean,
No,
that's
I'll
where
tell
the
you
problem
what, they
starts.
did talk about that when Breonna Taylor's family redid the lawsuit. They had found out this information, somebody had given it to them. They introduced that in the lawsuit. Within 2 days, they settled the lawsuit for $12 million. This is before any criminal court, before anything else happened, before any of the information was revealed. They gave him $12 million because Fisher did not want to go and have to give testimony. He stayed far away from it because he's a corrupt crook. That's what he is.
Fucking got shit stains in his goddamn shorts. Now that's ridiculous, man. And that's the thing that doesn't get out there. I mean, we get played in the media as like 3 guys come in. There's an innocent person sleeping on a couch and we shoot at her because we shoot at people that are sleeping on couches. That's
just what we do. That's what LeBron said. It's just what we do. That's what
I think the beauty of this is, and this is the whole reason that we have this podcast. Again, I'm fucking liberal as shit, but I am very prone to listening to the truth. And this is what we have here. We've got the truth. You were there.
It's called common sense, Howard. It's called common sense.
Yeah, guess what? Don't have it. Guess what else? You got fucking shot, dude. It's not like you were just some predator there. I mean, you got
Oprah said,
you got capped.
Oprah said we had a confrontation. Me and the boyfriend had a confrontation. Then I shot. Yeah, she left that part.
Yes.
Just
well, like I said, a lot of these people that say these type of things and at all levels of life, whether it's the famous people or even, low regular people of life, they've never, ever been in these type of situations, obviously, but a lot of them have never been the victims of violent crime. They say all this shit and they've never seen what the fuck goes on out there.
How about this? How about just fucking get the facts, man?
Yeah. Shocker.
Let's just get the motherfucking facts.
Well,
let's not go on conjecture, man. Let's not listen to bullshit. Let's not listen to gossip. Let's just hear the facts. And so guess what?
And if we're wrong, we pay for it. I mean, it's the way it is.
And listen, and
that shit happens.
Yeah, there are officers that pay for it, as they should, when they are, in fact, in the wrong. All right, real quick, John, before we get out of here, man, you have obviously since recovered. Kudos to you. Health-wise is good?
Yeah, not bad. No complaints. Got legs still numb. Knee still gives me issues once in a while, but yeah, I'm great.
How's a vasectomy?
Oh, beautiful.
Have you had a second vasectomy?
No.
Okay. Last question.
Enough cutting on those.
Yeah. Hey, you got 2 of them. Then cut the other side.
You're gonna look like Joan. Your balls are gonna look like Joan Rivers' face, man. Too much work.
They're supposed to be wrinkled,
obviously. Oh,
Botox them.
And this episode is brought to you by Manscaped.
That's right.
No, but so you've obviously got the book that's out there. You got the beautiful background behind you. Where can people find your book? Where can they find you if they want to reach out to you or follow you through social media?
It's anywhere books are sold online, Amazon, Target, Walmart, any of that. In stores, Books A Million and Barnes & Noble. And let me give you a little teaser on the book because there's a ton of stuff we couldn't get to today. I talk in there about a hit that was placed on us for $50,000 by Breonna Taylor's mother. And because she's part of a black biker club gang. And then I tell you the corruption of the FBI and the links where they came in and shut down the investigation because the optics looked bad going after a black female on a national stage. So all that's in the book, get it. You'll be enlightened. You'll see some stories, other things about my career early on. And I think you'll really enjoy it. Easy read, written by a cop. Didn't have a ghostwriter. Just sat down, did it myself. So it's super easy. Anybody can read it.
No big words.
And what's the name of it?
12 Seconds in the Dark.
12 Seconds in the Dark by Sergeant John Mattingly.
Hey, it was a pleasure to have you, sir. We really appreciate you telling us telling your story, and we're glad you're healthy now, man.
I appreciate it, guys.
All right, buddy. Take care.